WNST back with the Baltimore Ravens. Last time he was around here covering the team, I think we won a Super Bowl. I have to check on that. Clifton Brown is back with BaltimoreRavens.com after a short stint out in Indianapolis. You didn't bring the football team back, but we imported the best thing we had in Indianapolis. You can find him at Clifton G. Brown as well as out at BaltimoreRavens.com. Everyone loves Cliff. Welcome home, Cliff.
Thanks so much, Nestor. Good to be back.
Well, I tell you what, you're on the beat here, and some things have changed in the short time that you were gone and all of that, but now working on the team website, and, of course, worked in journalism many, many years. You know, I guess from the outside, the optimism for this team didn't exist in the spring. It sort of was built through Flacco's health and the offseason and where they were, and the optimism was pretty high until last Thursday. Now there's a shot of reality that, yeah, everybody loses games in this league, but how good this team's going to be, you know, I'm still kind of bullish on the team. I want to see them get healthy. I don't like them without Mosley and Jimmy Smith. I don't like my team without its best players.
Right, and, you know, obviously that's something that you kind of can't control. So, you know, if they're going to have a big year, they need to have, you know, their key players healthy for the most part. But I just think still after 2 games, it's too early, I should say, to try and make definitive decisions. I mean, the Ravens have had some great seasons. I believe both 2012 and then the 2011 team, which a lot of people think was their best team of the Harbaugh era. I believe they both started 1-1 in kind of like similar fashions, with an impressive win week 1, then a not so impressive loss in week 2. So I'm not saying obviously that they're going to have the same success as those teams had, but after 2 weeks, it's just too early for any of these teams for you to make definitive conclusions about. I think what John Harbaugh said recently about, you know, there are no great teams yet. Everybody's trying to be a good team or a great team. I believe that's true. We'll just have to wait a little bit longer to see.
Well, I know, you know, I've been at this longer than you, and you work for the team now, but I've been the biggest cheerleader around here for 20 years, and it's hard for me to think of a year where I really in my soul believed that the Steelers were going to win less games than the Ravens, right? Like, I've gone to Pittsburgh many times. We've beaten them. They've beaten us, whatever. But most of the time, by week 8, they've got one more than we've got, or Cincinnati in some of those odd years. It's been very, very rare the year where the Ravens are 2 up or 1 up on Cincinnati or Pittsburgh in their good years. And I would say this as an Oriole fan. The next few years with the Yankees and the Red Sox, just catching them feels sort of impossible. I don't know that it ever felt impossible with the Steelers, but certainly where they are right now, you can only be that good for that long. And what the Dolphins have done now, they're in first place for a minute over the Patriots, where they never find themselves. And the Bengals is undefeated. It just feels to me like the Steelers are vulnerable, right? And the Steelers being vulnerable, I think, changes the dynamic of everything in the division and what we believe about it. Because if the Steelers aren't going to win 12 or 13, and I don't believe they are, then maybe this is the year that 10 wins the division or 11 wins the division, and that can be the Ravens. Or maybe it's the Bengals. I don't know. The Bengals were certainly the better team on Thursday night, but I think the Ravens and the Bengals are both pretty good teams, and they might both be better than the Steelers this year.
I agree that could happen. I mean, I definitely feel the division is wide open. I felt that way before the season started. I did not think that the Steelers would be a 12-win team. I just think their defense, too many question marks. You know, they're going to score points, the Steelers, but they're going to give up points too. And I don't think they're going to play with the same consistency that it takes to be a 12, 13-win team. So, yeah, I didn't see anybody running away with the AFC North. I still don't see anybody running away with it. Yes, this is an opportunity, I believe, for the Ravens to walk through that door as far as being the division champs. It's wide open for any team. So, except for Cleveland, I don't think Cleveland's going to win the division, even though they're improved. But those 3 teams, the Ravens, Bengals, and Steelers, I think, could all win the AFC North, and I wouldn't find it to be shocking.
Cliff Brown is our guest. You can find him at Clifton G. Brown out on Twitter as well as at BaltimoreRavens.com. And we'll talk about his book and Irv Cross in a minute as well. But back in Baltimore after a short stint, how many years did you cover the team? I sort of get lost in all this after 23 years. Well, was it 6, 7 years you covered the team?
No, it was only 4.
4, okay.
And I came the year after they won the Super Bowl. So I was here 13 through 16. And then obviously missed last season when I was out in Indianapolis. So, I mean, yeah, the Ravens organization, has always been very stable. Obviously, one of the better organizations for sure in the NFL. And yeah, I think that, that helps them certainly going through the ups and downs that you go through an NFL season that, they've been there, done that, have known the ultimate success, and don't get too carried away when things go well or when they don't go well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this season plays out for the Ravens. I do believe their schedule is difficult. So that's another reason we talked about the health of the team earlier, why it's important for them to stay healthy this year with their key guys, because I think they're going to have a lot of tough games that they're going to have to try and win if they're going to get back into the playoffs. But I definitely think this year's Ravens team is better than last year's. I love definitely the wide receiver additions. They all seem to have good chemistry with Joe Flacco, which I think is going to make the offense better. The defense, I believe, is solid. But, yeah, at some point they're going to have to play consistent football to run off enough wins to get back into the playoffs.
All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Royal Farms. Real fresh, real fast. The ROFO Rewards Card available in your pocket or for downloading. Pump your gas, get your fried chicken and your Western fries free of charge. And, of course, as Justin Tucker would tell you, coffee for $1. It's Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Also brought to you by Sporticulture. The flowers around me, grown locally but shipped anywhere. My pal Cord out on the west side of town has a beautiful nursery out there making all these beautiful flowers under the sunshine. You can find them at Sporticulture. That's sporticulture.com. And ship them anywhere they go. Also, Cole Roofing in our Thursday morning charity and community series. You want to be a part of that? Toss me an email, nasty@WNST.net. Billy Cole will be joining us throughout the week as well, talking some sports. You can find them at Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy for all your corporate roofing needs. Clifton Brown is our guest. He's out on Twitter. He's at BaltimoreRavens.com and back in Baltimore, covering the team from the inside out now at BaltimoreRavens.com. The comeback for me on Thursday night spoke well of the Ravens, and you weren't in London last year, but I was, Cliff, and I tell you what, when they got down last year, and that was a turning point in the season, really, because they had played pretty good football up to that point, I was a little worried about Cincinnati at 21-0, the thing really getting away from them. I love they got back in the game. I don't love the way Flacco played. I don't think Flacco liked the way Flacco played. He's got to be better than that. Cincinnati really does some things to confound Joe Flacco, though.
Yeah, that's been the history, obviously, during Joe's career. They give him as tough a time as anybody in the NFL. And they've got good players, and I definitely think the pass rush that Cincinnati generated in that game was a key. They sacked Flacco 4 times. He was hit 8 other times. That's a lot of pressure. And, like almost every quarterback, Joe's at his best when the pocket is clean. And obviously coming up in their next game against Denver, that's going to be a huge key. I mean, Von Miller, some people may say Khalil Mack is the best pass rusher in the NFL, but if you don't say it's Mack, it's probably Miller. And, if you don't take care of him, he can take over a game as he took over a Super Bowl a few years ago. So that's going to be a key for the Ravens, not only, I think, Sunday, but moving forward throughout the season, how well they protect Flacco. I think he's showing, even though certainly Week 2 wasn't one of his best games in Cincinnati, if you give Joe time with these receivers, he's going to make some plays. But, if the offensive line cannot protect him well during the season, then that's certainly going to affect how well he plays.
Cliff, for you with this, with the Cleveland Browns, I'm sure you're watching Hard Knocks. I was too. I expected them to be an improved team. I expected them to give the Steelers fits in Week 1, and obviously they had their opportunities to win the game the past week as well. They're coming on, and this whole stretch we're about to enter here makes this Denver game that much more important, because I don't think you can play 4 out of 5 on the road, even though it's Cleveland, Nashville, some places where maybe we have better talent going in there, but they're road games, and that's always been a struggle for this organization and every other organization. But after this week, it gets kind of treacherous going into Pittsburgh, going into Cleveland, going into Nashville. This part of the season, you can really get off the rails and find yourself under 500. You got to win the games you're supposed to win. This is a better version of the Broncos in 5-11 last year. I watched them play on Sunday. They were kind of gritty and coming back against the Raiders, where they didn't play well in the first half.
Yeah, there's certainly, you don't look at the Denver coming to town as a gimme game. To me, we've already talked about Von Miller and what he can do to a team. They've got some more weapons on offense now as far as their running game. A couple of rookie backs who are doing well for them. And yeah, I mean, I think that you're right as far as after the Denver game, playing 3 straight on the road. A lot of seasons you don't have 3 straight road games at all. So it's kind of unusual to have 3 straight on the road. It's always tough to win on the road in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, Cleveland, their biggest problem now is, figuring out how to close games. They are good enough now to play a lot of teams close, both at home and on the road, but they're still having issues when it comes down to those 4 or 5 key plays. They can send the game one way or another. They're having problems closing the deal. So, yeah, the Ravens, again, this schedule they have this season to me is challenging, more challenging than last year's their schedule. So they have to make sure that even though I feel they're a better team this year, that they finish with a better record because, 9-7 may not be enough to get you in the playoffs again, whereas I think 10 wins or more, I think your chances are excellent of getting in.
You can find Cliff at Clifton G. Brown out on Twitter as well as at BaltimoreRavens.com where he's back in town covering all things purple from the inside. 30 passes in the first half for Flacco against Buffalo, 55 more against Cincinnati. At some point, I want to see this running game, and part of keeping Flacco upright and down in distance and not jumping off and not holding guys and having penalties and whatnot, but just running the football, which we heard a lot about in the offseason. I think this line was prepared for that. It was coached up for that. We just haven't seen that through 2 weeks.
No question the Ravens need to get to that. I mean, I think Alex Collins could have a big year if he gets enough touches, and he hasn't gotten many touches in the first 2 games. I think all running backs benefit from getting in a rhythm and getting regular touches, but you have to be committed to the running game from start to finish for, I think, sometimes for it to really click. And also, you obviously have to avoid falling behind like the Ravens did in Cincinnati. So I think this week they're really going to emphasize trying to get the running game started. I would look for that against Denver because obviously you want to stay out of third and long situations dealing with Von Miller. And if you can get the running game going and run at him and make him be a run defender, not just a guy who's teeing off on Joe on second and long and third and long, that's going to help you. So I think Sunday will be a really good test of whether the Ravens can get their running game going, and I expect them to try and do that for sure against this opponent.
Cliff, the kicking thing's something we don't think a whole lot about here, and Justin Tucker's missed a handful of kicks over his time, but widely regarded, and justifiably so, as the best kicker in the league, as I'm drinking out of my Royal Farms cup here, my dollar coffee as well. But watching the games on Sunday, and look, we don't get a chance to sit around in red zone it much. You and I are in a stadium, wherever the team is or whatever. So when I get to put my feet up and sit and watch football all day, I was just taken aback by how much of a struggle extra points are in a lot of places. And around here, we have this automatic thing going on with him. I think we count on it a lot. And, it's a facet of the game that I think even over the last quarter of a century, I'm kind of shocked that there aren't 32 guys that can do it really, really well, And I guess they all do it well in their own way, but what an incredibly pressure-filled thing it is, and how, we're all familiar with Billy Cundiff around here. Every football fan can name a dozen kickers, Al Del Greco around here, that have missed key kicks, and your heart breaks for them, if they're on your side or the other side for that matter. But, boy, across the league on Sunday, it's really the rules changes have affected the games in so many ways, right on down to how that rule has affected the 10-minute overtime rule, right?
Oh, no question. And having a kicker like Justin Tucker, a huge advantage for the Ravens. And, yes, I think maybe it is taken for granted sometimes around here because he's so good and misses so rarely that when he tries onto the field, you just kind of assume he's going to make the field goal. But you see in so many other places, that's not the case, particularly in big moments. I mean, there's a reason why kickers, in the second quarter don't struggle as much as they seem to in the fourth quarter and overtime because it's the pressure. Those kicks are bigger. Everybody knows what's at stake. And it can be really deflating to an entire team when they work hard enough to get themselves in position to win a game and then the kicker fails and to make a kick that, he should make. So, yeah, I mean, for some of these teams, that's going to mean the difference between making the playoffs and not. It certainly means the difference between winning football games at times and not. And that's one thing the Ravens have in their favor is that, Tucker whether it's the first quarter or overtime, he seems to be oblivious to the pressure. And he's just a kicker with a lot of talent and a lot of guts who, all through his career here, has proven that he'll come through for you.
All right, let's expand the conversation beyond football in current times. And it's been a little while since you and I got together. You went out to Indianapolis when you left Comcast Sportsnet and the NBC folks took over there. Now you're back with Ravens.com. And I did not realize that this book had come out. I don't know why, but last year, Bearing the Cross, My Inspiring Journey from Poverty to the NFL and Sports Television, Irv Cross. And you contributed in this, and obviously Gil Brandt wrote the foreword. Irv Cross came to my studio, Cliff, in 1993 or 4, in promoting the CFL, when the Baltimore Stallions or the CFL Colts, whatever they were calling themselves, and he sat in my studio for 2 hours, and I still have the tape. I actually ran across it recently, so that tape's now 25 years old. First off, I think I saw him within the last year or two in Minnesota doing something, but I didn't. He has disappeared in a way where Brent Musburger's out doing the Raiders and the gambling thing and whatever. I don't know where Phyllis George or some of the other people from that era, but I grew up with that, man. So, and Irv Cross, I've never met a nicer man than Irv Cross, and still so much to learn. And you did a book with him, right?
I did, yes. Irv, I didn't know Irv at all before we collaborated on this book. I was just looking to do a book. It suggested that he might be a good guy to do a book on. So when we finally met, we hit it off, decided we were going to do the project. And yeah, he's a pioneer in the business. He's the first black national sports analyst ever on national TV with that, show, the NFL Today, which was such a historic, trailblazing show with Irv and then Phyllis George being a woman, and then Jimmy the Greek Snyder bringing the gambling element, and then Brett Musburger, the true pro announcer, kind of tying it all together. And, they went live. I mean, it was a different era. They used to do 2 or 3 versions of that show every Sunday. And Irv is a guy who, he just had a smooth, unflappable presence. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes animosity on that show with Phyllis George not getting along with Jimmy the Greek and, fist fight between Jimmy the Greek and Brett Musburger in a restaurant. But, Irv was a guy that everybody wanted to work with. He was kind of the glue to the show. And, just a real soft-spoken guy, but he wanted to tell his life story, and we collaborated on it. The book has gotten a lot of favorable reviews and positive feedback, which, we're both grateful for. I didn't know he was one of 15 children. I didn't know he had grown up dirt poor. I didn't know that, he really didn't think he was good enough to be an NFL player and ended up playing in the league for 9 years. So he has lived a fascinating life, and I think people who pick up the book will really enjoy reading about a guy who, again, is a true pioneer in the business.
Absolutely. Clifton Brown joining us here. You can find him out on Twitter as well as at BaltimoreRavens.com. He will be sitting either to my right or my left at various points throughout the season, and we'll try to bring him on from time to time and clear things up around here. I certainly hope for a purple victory here this week. It would be a lot more fun going out to Pittsburgh. And, there is a part of me, Clifton, I'm really enjoying all this animosity in Pittsburgh. This is fun. Pass me some popcorn. I want to watch them play on Monday night, too.
Sounds good, Nestor. We all know that people in Baltimore smile when things aren't going well in Pittsburgh. So we'll see how that plays out.
Even Mike Tomlin knows how I feel about that. So, it's the glue to our relationship, our disdain. See you soon, man. The book is Burying the Cross on Irv Cross. You can find that anywhere books are sold. Just Google it up, out on Amazon or whatnot. And Clifton Brown can be found at Clifton G. Brown out on the G, I think, stands for great or good, or there you go, something like that. I'll ask him next time. He's going to tell me. He's at BaltimoreRavens.com as well, and covering the Ravens and back in town. Always good to have Cliff around. You can find me out on the buy at Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app, becoming crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox free of charge each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. Also, the Maryland Jockey Club in Laurel. Speaking of Jimmy the Greek, Jimmy the Greek loved the ponies, no doubt about that. It's the intangibles, Brent, the intangibles. It's been a long time since I thought of Jimmy the Greek and Phyllis George, so there you have it. I'm going to read the book. The ponies are playing this week. I tell you what, they had to move the defensive stash from last week to this week because of the weather. And the Maryland Million is October 20th. It's all happening down at Laurel in the Maryland Jockey Club. Entries at the front of WNST.net as well as in our morning newspaper. Last but never least, all breaking news happens first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colossus will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home, getting you ready for Broncos and Ravens this week. We got a busy week around here. Alex Lewis at Michael's Cafe on Tuesday night, swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero. And big doings next week as Luke and I take off for Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's Pittsburgh week next week. We better be 2-1. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.